There we go. Okay, just waiting for Facebook, and we'll be reading chapter 5. In the email, I put chapter 4 for whatever reason. I don't know why, but we're rereading it from last week, and I'm just going to read myself this week. So, I want to get more into the discussion part of things rather than the than reading itself. Yes, it's fun when different people read. That's I enjoy that. It's really nice. But we get so caught up in the reading that we kind of miss the discussion. And the idea for these is to as we read, like what comes up, much like when we chat, what comes up, what's pertinent, what's relevant, ask questions, just discuss the whole thing. So that's key, just that the discussion part of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, getting there. I'm just sorting the window. Always takes a few moments to get actually going. It's not as instantly live as Facebook would have us believe. It's all fibs, Facebook. It's all fibs. All right. Okay. And we got a hello. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, somebody on Facebook joined. Good deal. Okay. Oh, did that now. Facebook, I start typing and then I don't know where it just moves the screen for whatever reason. I don't know if you saw what happened there. It just kind of jumps, I click inside the box and then it just moves it. It doesn't stay inside the box, the cursor. It's really weird. All right.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get going in one moment. All right. See, I had another Facebook window, which I want to close. It's not that one. I guess not then. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Just, for the connectivity. All right. So before we get started on chapter 5, Ursula Aspirant, just to catch up on the story. And Jancy, I don't know if you've watched any of their previous videos or you're new to it, but I'm assuming you're new, and I'll just assume. We find Biella's after she initially connected with the aspirants, and she asked about the question of what one word would you like to remember if you could only remember one word to kind of get you started if you woke up, let's say, on a fresh planet, on a new planet, unknown planet, and you had no memory, but you had your vocabulary, but you couldn't remember who you were yourself. You're just starting fresh, as it were. And so they went through a whole discussion of that, and the word they came to was appropriateness. And the word of the day for Beena, right, Beena?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Then Biela and Shah had a most marvelous adventure, and then we come to where the story really gets going, where Ursula is tasked by the new nobility. Just the overall, whoever was in admin at the time, they all take turns at being in admin. But anyway, it fell on her to attend to a group of delegates that are looking to, their worlds are looking to join the agglomeration. And her task is to show them what the new nobility are all about. Right? So it's a very specific mandate that she has to show them. So this is what she's doing, and the story starts where this one this one delegate is it's a bit confounding for Biela. She likes this delegate. the delegates, Ursula, but she feels there's something that she's not quite connecting to, and she's not sure. It's a bit of a mystery when it comes to Ursula. So we pick up the story where Ursula is going through, and she said, Biella explained a whole bunch of things, and she said anybody can be an aspirant. There's no restriction on age or anything. It doesn't matter. Just because they typically tend to be younger doesn't mean that they have to be. So I'm just going to mute you for a second. I'm getting your charger sound, Beena. Um, so then Biella, there's somewhat of an interaction with Cornelius and Ursula, and they have a big discussion about the story that Biella had told about how the agglomeration came to be called the agglomeration, and it was because of something very specific that the new nobility did at a conference. This was centuries ago. So, and it could be seen as manipulation, but turns out it wasn't. So they have a big discussion about the ethics of taking preemptive action and how that could be seen as manipulation, but it really isn't. So anyway, so they have a big discussion. At the end of this discussion, Ursula says she wants to be an aspirant. And this is where we're picking up the story, because it leaves off with Ursula saying something very particular that somewhat confuses Cornelius. And it's a very powerful statement, but it needs explaining. So we pick up the story on that point. All right. Ursula the Aspirant, Chapter 5, Book 1 of the Biella series. Be, just be. Being you, just you. That is enough. I will be me, and that is enough. Then we can be we, and that will be more than you and more than me. But first, we just need to be. From Poems of the New Nobility. Biella and Cornelius recapped in the Garden of Celebration, a bright and lovely garden, all the flower colors represented in a variety of shapes and patterns. The trees light and airy, reaching tall, as if cheering each passerby. Fountains of all shapes and sizes everywhere. Along the path and near the fountain, special motion-activated spouts shot bursts of colored and shaped water into the air as someone approached. The spouts would then activate another spout where they landed, leading to a joyful dance of leaping water sprites romping across the garden with leaps and bounds of sheer delight. As more people entered the garden, the spouts would combine and interact, becoming thicker and shooting higher, going further or staying longer in the air. When crowds entered, the display would be dizzying in its complexity. Great bursts of water, often spinning and twisting in intricate patterns, could be seen shooting high into the sky, over and around the tall trees. A spectacular display of pure celebration. A magnificent garden. Biella loved it dearly. She had chosen the garden in honor of Ursula's decision to become an aspirant. Biella was early. She loved the first light there, the way it caught the small bursts of water which could only be seen when she was there alone. Her leisurely amble brought her unexpectedly to Cornelius, immersed in himself. He expressed his thoughts out loud. Biella heard him say, "More has been introduced than has been settled. I think Cornelius is probably a huge dolt. So doltish Biella has confused it for understanding." Unfazed, Biella said, "Haha, no, he is awesome." Biella knew this was a technique Cornelius liked to use. It gave him a unique perspective on himself, on his actions. Cornelius had not even looked up or reacted to her comment. She stayed with his style. I love how he summed it up at the end. Remember, he is helping Biella. He is acting as a bridge to the delegates. I love him. Give him a bit of slack until it's all done. People who think being highly intuitive must make everything so easy aren't seeing the downside of it. You still have to make it explicit to yourself. That can really slow you down, as you have to come back to the answer again and again, looking at it from various perspectives to try and figure out how to get from A to B, or, as is most often the case, from A to C, Cornelius said. Biella added, And then the extra time to recap, to bring it all into full awareness. But the rewards. Intuition opens us, connects to so much. Yes, the rewards. Once understanding is finally reached, it's very solid, real, not easy to forget, Camillus agreed. It is the most central issue, Biala said gently. Camillus straightened, stood up, a delayed greeting response. He seemed to have come to a resolution. Oh, it is manipulated thoroughly and completely, but not by us, by the universe. That's what the learning process is. That's and how why it is successful. The learning process is a process by which we allow the universe to manipulate the situation. This is why intentional, self serving manipulation scheming is so egregious. It subverts the possibility of allowing the universe to control the situation. So it is actually against our own interest in disallowing the universal input by replacing it with their own. They practically ensured failure of the project. Yes, Biala affirmed, matching his resolve. I love the way you expressed yourself. Excellent. Thank you, Camillus. That was fun. Camillus grinned. I really enjoyed this revisit of our discussions. So much more this time around. All right, I just want to pause there. Any comments, Beena? And Camillus is talking about the
Yes,
manipulation.
I'm here. I'm listening, but my network is so noisy.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Could you hear more or less?
Oh yes, I can. I can.
Okay. Any comments?
No, not right now, but
All right.
yes.
All right. So just to fill in a little bit, Camillus is in his peculiar way. He talks about himself in the third person. It's a powerful technique of his that he uses to get perspective on himself. That's why he just talks about Camillus. He's Camillus, but he's talking about Camillus.
Oh yes.
And then
Oh yeah.
Biela just joins in, and she talks about Biela in the third person also. So it's a very powerful technique of his.
Oh
And then
yes.
also what he's talking about is when he says they practically ensure failure of the project, he wasn't talking about the new nobility. Their project actually succeeded because they were going with the universe, not against it. But he's just talking about in general, if anybody shifts out of attunement, in other words, and substitute their own judgment in without taking any regard for universal input, then they practically ensure failure of the project. In disallowing the universal input by replacing it with their own, they practically ensure failure of the project. Or it should really be a project, but uh, Camillus has his own peculiar way of talking, and he's he's a bit of an intellectual. He's a professor where he's at professor of philosophy, so he has his style. But Biela does enjoy him, and he comments like that's a very profound comment, and it's a very profound takeaway. What he's saying, Biela hadn't introduced attunement yet, and he just jumped to this right away. So that was very powerful. All right. So it goes your charger again, but it's all good. I'm YouTube. I'll read a bit more. It's all good.
Okay.
Biela shifted her stance slightly, accommodating the importance within. It is a key part of the new nobility's process, Camillus. After any discussion, or often during it, we make a conscious and deliberate effort to determine our takeaway. That's what we call it. This is always done with everyone partaking in the discussion. It's essential. The takeaway serves not only as a summation and clarification for the person expressing it, but it also allows the others involved an opportunity to check what they have received, that they have actually understood the way it was meant. We can easily ask someone if they understood. They can say yes. But how do we really know? Only with a feedback mechanism can this be checked for certain. The process of the takeaway itself is marvelous for locking in what we have come to understand from the discussion. When we hear back what we have said, it allows us to confirm or correct as appropriate. This applies to all in the discussion. Biala continued. It goes further. We like to go over the same point with different people to garner as many perspectives as possible. We have learned a way of listening which allows us to hear the same point or story over and over. You have probably noticed some of the senior new nobles sometimes sitting in with the aspirants who are listening to another new noble, or the way they listen is as if they were aspirants again. Yes, Camellia said. I did. I found it most curious. At first, I noticed from a distance, assuming immediately they were sitting in as monitors or a double check system. But as I came closer, the attitude did not match. I had to stop and closely examine the situation. I was not able to come to a satisfactory conclusion without verification. I am glad to have the opportunity. They seem to be partaking the same way the aspirants were. I could see no real difference. It is most puzzling. Biela's laughter tickled across the garden. She enjoyed the way Camelius had portrayed the picture. Yes, that's about as close to accurate as it gets. But why? Camelius was genuinely puzzled. We have to take the idea of not ever assuming what we know is absolute or that it cannot be improved upon very seriously, or even that it is valid. So, whenever the opportunity arises, a new noble will clear their mind of their perspectives, joining a discussion fresh and open. Mostly the senior new nobles will just listen, not evaluating, not analyzing, just let what just letting what is being said come to them. They will allow whatever is stimulated inside them to come to the surface. They will let the discussion or conversation trigger associations and connections. By staying open, by not paying attention to the known, they let the new come through. This is extremely powerful in bringing to the fore new connections. Ah, so many possibilities. Cornelius was thinking again. There's more. Bella smiled. Isn't there always with the new nobility? Cornelius chuckled. I am coming to see this more and more. Nothing is ever simple. Well, no, actually, you simplify so much. Everything really. You condense it down to its essence. It's that way with the new nobility. It's that nothing is in isolation. It's always connected. That's why there's always more. He beamed. Yes, yes, Biela confirmed. Multi-threaded, that's what we call it, or multi-layering. Everything is already connected. It is not as if we are connecting them. We are simply uncovering those connections, making an effort to be aware of them. When a senior new noble listens to a discussion or story in that way, they are also tuning into the abstract of it. Most of our topics and stories deal with the abstract. The connection to the abstract can always be refreshed. It is a joyous experience. The re-listening serves as a reminder. It refreshes not only our understanding, but our appreciation and memory. Not that we need to remember the point or story, sometimes maybe, but it serves to raise the points involved in our awareness. Over time, with repetition, we come to hold more points simultaneously. This is a major accomplishment. Biala paused for a second. Now the connection to the takeaway. All right, before I go into that connection with the takeaway, this ability to listen to the same stories again and again. Why does that happen? And Biala says this here. But it serves to raise the points involved in our awareness. There's more to that also. Yes, it is nice to get a refresher and a reminder. For instance, let's say the conversation is about appropriateness, and that same conversation, no two conversations are quite ever the same way. There's always something in the specific time and place which makes for the conversation to go a different way. So if we look at my background here, we could say we start off on any one square and we're looking to get to that center. But, let's say something that I say, and then you make a comment and somebody else makes a comment, and then that leads off onto a little digression, and then we come back again and we go all the way. In other words, and we finally end up there. From that one point to the center, there's just a zillion different routes we can take. We can go all the way around and come back. So there's not one path to something, especially when the way that they are interacting. So when they listen to a story that they've heard before, they are listening and they are connecting and attuning not just to the story, but to themselves, to their insides, and also attuning to the greatness of things. So in this case, let's just take an example. Let's say that story that Biala shared in chapter 1, or at least not the story, but her point, her question that she asked about appropriateness. Well, she asked, what one word, right? So let's say she brings that up again right now in this, like, yeah, we're with Beena and I. Beena just had a post earlier, or she's working on a post about something that happened to her today, very specifically a story, and it involved appropriateness. So if it was Beena listening, she would be thinking, you know what, yes, today I had this incident at work, I spilled my tea, there's a long story to it, but it was all about appropriateness because this is what I was thinking about. And it was how, and the takeaway from that for Beena was that the tea stays the same, whether she drinks it or spills it on herself, which had burnt her. And, from one extreme to the other, it was really delicious tea, and she really wanted the tea, but it went, and it was about the appropriateness in the moment, appropriateness of application, thus, in other words. So for her, the connectivity of appropriateness was the thing itself typically stays the same. How we utilize it, how we connect to it, how we perceive it, etc. This is what is determined, or is determined by appropriateness, depending on the circumstance, right? I mean, if you want to use your tea as a weapon, well, that would be something. Then the burning would be appropriate, right? So there's all sorts of ways in which we get to use things. It's all about the appropriateness. So her particular story of that now, yes, the discussion starts on, let's say for argument's sake, was about the one word. And once they get to appropriateness, Biela could then add to Biela's original story to say that the interesting part with appropriateness, when we look at specific things, is that they actually remain unchanged. In other words, this could be, okay, in this case, it was tea that she spilled, but it could be anything. It could be our love, for instance, our reactivity, our interactions, our communications. All of these might be the same, but appropriateness determines their usage, their value, their application, their effectiveness, their efficiency, and so on. So this connection between things basically staying the same and how we use them is a function of appropriateness. This would then be, in that instance where Biela joining that discussion, would come up for Biela. So the entire discussion from chapter 1 would now take on an extra dimension that connects to appropriateness. And because the new nobility and the aspirants and their discussions are inevitably in some way connected to the abstract, because that's what they're all about. They are looking for the more, the deeper, going inside, understanding the connectivity of everything. So now all of that, of course, Beena would have been taking tea, and its connection to appropriateness, specifically hot tea, and how it can be, very different depending on the circumstances and how it's utilized or non-utilized, as the case may be, when it comes to spilling it on your leg. So this is what they do in those discussions. So it doesn't matter if the same story is there. It's always going to be different. And we forget that whenever we listen to a story, at least when the stories are connected to an abstract and there is a space to connect to what's going on inside you. So sometimes in these discussions, something may come up and it's always about pertinence and relevance. So now in the case of Beena, it may be that, okay, it was a freak accident that knocked over the tea. And this could be, what Beena's saying, appropriateness. Yes, it's about being deliberate. It's about being aware. In order to be appropriate, you need to be, but sometimes there's oddity, there's anomaly that comes into it. And now the entire conversation could have shifted towards the appropriateness of anomalies, which is a whole massive big topic So, of course, like here on the diagram, we may start off at the center point of appropriateness, but we can go in any direction for that. And that is how we listen. And how the new nobility very specifically listen is they listen in attunement with themselves, what's going on inside them, what they're feeling at that time, what happened in their lives, in attunement to the others in the group, in attunement to the universe, the world, in nature, everything. They take all of that. So sometimes you might just be sitting there and nothing is necessarily going on, like with Beena and the tea, but you're just sitting there listening and something will just bubble up inside you, some connectivity, some idea, some remembrance that sometimes they might even seem completely unconnected, but they know these things are very seldom unconnected, and any point can be connected to any other point. It's not that difficult to do that, right? After a while, when you start to look at things from this overview perspective, you can connect anything to anything. So whatever comes up, they will actually mention, especially if it comes up and it has some feeling or energy to them. It's like, how come that came up? Then they will bring this out. And this is part of this whole takeaway. Plus, they will also sometimes, let's say, a new noble had joined Biella in that discussion with the aspirants. And after Biella had given her takeaway, a summation takeaway of the story in what appropriateness meant to her, a new nobility may have said, for me, I come at it from this angle, and then they share a completely different perspective, saying the same thing, but from a different perspective. So that they might just do to add a different angle at coming things. Because when we are looking to understand something, especially something that's really profound and complex, which it's also simple, like appropriateness, but its application, of course, there's many, many ways to apply it. And appropriateness has thus this magical, simple complexity. It's more of a layeredness, right? But we want to understand it from every single angle. And an example we frequently use, it's like trying to understand the inside of a house by looking in through the windows. We're kind of looking at the outside of things mostly when we're looking to understand things that have a moreness to them. And anything that's an abstract conception has a moreness to it. So when we look in through a single window, we of course only see a part of the house. We need to look through multiple windows in order to be able to understand what the lay of the house is, the layout, the inside, to understand what's going on inside there. Here's the fun part though. We don't actually need to look through all the windows. We only need to look through enough. At some point, we have enough information and data where we can extrapolate and put together, and the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, very much exactly like a jigsaw puzzle. You keep putting those pieces in, and after a while, you don't have all the pieces yet, but you can make out the picture, right? Your brain is able to fill in the missing pieces and what the picture is. That's just how things work, and it works the same way with understanding of abstract conceptions. And then we start to get that connectivity. And the more angles we look at, the greater we start to perceive and conceive and understand the greater whole. And this is the ongoing way of living for the new nobility. They are constantly looking to understand the greatness of everything, the entire connectivity of how it all fits and works together. So the more angles you come from, the more light you shed, the more awareness you shed on the complexity of things, and it becomes less and less complex, and it all becomes connected, and it all falls into place. So this takeaway philosophy, it's a very big deal. It's not only a takeaway as in, what do I take away from this, as in what's important to me? No, it's much more than that. Because part of it will be too, you'll often hear those same new nobles that are participating in listening to somebody. Let's say an aspirant is explaining something, and they don't quite have the fullness of it yet. What they mean and what they say might be a little bit different, or they're practicing their expression, their communication. So a new noble will, in that case, say, yeah, let me see. Jinsi, you know what? I just want to make sure I understood what you said correctly. So if I understood you correctly, this is what you were saying. And they will then explain back what, for instance, Jinsi had said. And now, in that explaining back, they won't adjust it to what they believe it should be. No, they will explain back what Jinsi said, whether it's accurate or inaccurate or not, it doesn't matter. It's not about that. It is about communication. Now, Jinsi can say, oh, yeah, you're right. That's what I said, but that's not what I meant actually. And then they get an opportunity to adjust it. Or Jinsi can say, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. And it's different to what the usual perception is. I am meaning it to be different. I have a different take on this, and this is why. So now you start a discussion, but Jinsi gets to hear how they express themselves. And now they know that whoever was saying, let me see if I understand you correctly, this is what I understood you to say and what I understood you to mean, they get to know that this person actually did understand them. Then, of course, the person could say, that's, this is what I understood you to mean. And then they could, for instance, add and say, I come at things from a slightly different angle. I look at it this way. That's very interesting. You have this perspective. And then there's a discussion in case that they're coming at the things from different angles. And through that discussion, inevitably, when the discussion is focused on understanding, not agree or disagree, they come to an understanding. It might come to the end point to say, I understand why, you like cauliflower, but for me personally, when I eat it, it I don't know, it tastes like a poison. So I understand how come you like it, because I understand that our taste buds are vastly different, and our bio. And my point is that we can understand why people have perspectives, have opinions, even though we don't necessarily agree with them. And this is part of the whole new nobility way. They come to that deeper understanding, and they find out the actual underlying reason for the difference in understanding. And sometimes it's just a choice of belief that, okay, I choose to like this music, you choose to like that music. There's no real reason for it. It just is. So it doesn't matter. So the whole takeaway philosophy that Cornelius is focusing on here, and it's just a small part here. They're just doing a quick little chat here just while they wait for Ursula and the other aspirants to join. But it's a very big deal. So I'm elaborating because it's very fundamental to the way of interactivity. There's a real focus on listening and hearing others, which is, I am focused on listening and hearing what you say, not what I'm going to be responding, not listening to myself inside. Oh, what am I going to say? How am I going to respond? No, that's irrelevant. I'm listening to what you say. I'm listening with the intent to not only understand and actually hear every single word you say, but to hear what you mean, and also to hear the implications of what you are saying. Sometimes we say things that we're not even aware of our own connectivity to implications, especially when stuff kind of bubbles out and you've got that energy and you're unsure, you're working through stuff, you're practicing. What you say then and what you mean, it might not always be the same thing. Brilliant. Hello, Courtney. Hello. Thank you. Wow. Courtney, which insight in particular I'm keen to hear? I love interactivity, and this is the point of the reading. It is to connect and interact. So I was a little late in setting this up today, but I'm glad you guys are here. We did this last week, but the connection was so poor that we couldn't really hear the recording, so it was no good. So I'm very keen to hear, Courtney, what specifically connected with you in terms of needed. Because now, exactly what we were talking about, the takeaway and the appropriateness. Now, Courtney says, this particular point really connected with me. Now, that's the appropriateness. That is the magic of the entire takeaway thing, that we say, oh, you know what? We're saying something resonated inside with Courtney, something connected, something touched her. That is magic, because there's an extra energy involved. And when we hear that, when we connect to that capital H hear, when we hear that energy inside another, say, hey, there's a reason why this did. We want to hear more. Now we connect whatever we're saying. We connect to that. The angles to check out facts, Courtney says in response, and being able to look through the window. Yes. Not having to see everything. But we do need to step away from just one view. Yes, and that connection to understanding rather than agree and disagree. When we unhook from agree and disagree, it is profoundly liberating. to say, hey, we can have different opinions on stuff, but to understand why I have mine, to understand why you have yours. Sometimes we don't always even understand our own opinions, what they're based on. So when we really get into discussing them, we say, oh, you know what? That's a misbelief I've kind of carried all my life. And where did I get this from? Oh, some numbskull at school told me this. We'll be surprised how sometimes we can build a whole structure of belief based on a misbelief of something silly that we heard, or that we don't connect other things to it. For instance, I'll give an example that came up yesterday in a workshop we did. It was about self-appreciation. And this comes up a lot. Typically, for most earnest, good people, they associate self-appreciation or self-love or self-enjoyment, self-acceptance even. They associate anything positive you say about yourself, they associate it with ego, with self-importance, with vanity, with overestimation of self, and all of the negative things, right? And they've been taught, hey, don't be egotistical, don't be vain, don't be self-important. Exactly. This is a profound belief and a value to not be egotistical. But unfortunately, they directly associate it with self-acceptance and self-appreciation. And they forget that there are other connectivities. Yes, when it comes to self-appreciation, don't be egotistical and don't be vain. But also, it is important to also be honest when it comes to self-appreciation, right? If you aren't honest about self-appreciating, well, aren't you then, if I say, Courtney, are you a good person? You're going to say yes. I say, Courtney, can you be deliberately bad? You're going to say no. I say, Courtney, do you have good qualities like sensibility, like understanding, like compassion, like kindness, like generosity, like integrity, and so on? You're going to say yes, yes, yes. Well, because now it's just an honest question, right? If you're being totally honest, you have to say yes to those questions about your good qualities. So now that reassociation, instead of self-appreciation just being connected to vanity and ego, we can add it being connected to honesty. So now, thank you, Olivia. Brilliant, brilliant. So, so when we make that shift now, and we're saying, you know what, there's more, but through a takeaway, through an additional perspective, we can now couple and have a new association with self-appreciation to honesty. And that's huge. That's huge, because now we unhook from this always being overly humble and overly modest and never being able to be real about ourselves. So then we can say, in all honesty, you know what, this is my good quality. I have an ability to whatever your ability and skill is. I guess for, like in my case, I've worked on practicing that skill of listening to people and hearing them. I could say, hey, this is a skill I possess. And I'm not being egotistical. It's just something I can do. Or making the obvious obvious. It's another skill I have. So, I got all sorts of weird skills. But it's just a different way of going. So what you were saying, Courtney, this is a very big deal when we unhook from agree or disagree. Because if I agree with you and you agree with me, what have I learned? Bugger all. I already knew what I said beforehand. So if you agree with me, well, okay, thank you. But it doesn't do anything for me. But when we have a discussion about understanding, if you share whatever I said, and you say, this is how I understood it, and this is what a takeaway for me, this is what it means for me, and then you bring your personal perspective into it. Now we extend that understanding. And when we do that, it becomes a magical collaboration. Hello, somebody's joining me. Brilliant.
Me. I'm back.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Beena, Olivia and Courtney are chatting in the Facebook chat. So I was saying, when we bring in moreness and we have that extendedness of understanding, then our 1+1 collaboration becomes more. Not 1+1 is 2. No, when it comes to collaboration and interacting on this kind, it becomes more. Very much exactly like what's happening now. Just your few comments here that you are talking about, they're leveraging me, your earnestness, because there's an earnestness in your comments that I can feel even through the typing and through Facebook. That earnestness, it pulls more from me, and it's very profound. So 1+1 is most decidedly more. It's really magical. And just on a very technical note on that, get scientific on this a little bit, we hear resonance. We hear the term, oh, that really resonates with me. And we hear this a lot. People say that. But there's actually something really very specific about that. If you get energy waves, right, or any two waveforms, and they're coming across, and when they resonate, let's say this is the height when they resonate and they come together, you know what actually happens? When the two come together and they resonate, they actually double in size. They amplify. That's just how waves are. When the two come together, they amplify. You can see it in water. Drop two pebbles, and when they overlap, boom, you see they get higher like that. Exactly. You get higher vibrations with resonance. And that is why 1 + 1, when we resonate, which is what understanding is, it is persisting until we get to a point of capital R resonance. It is something really magical. So when we resonate, exactly what you say, Courtney, we get higher vibrations and we get the learning, which is enlightening. Yes, it is most enlightening when we get that learning. So resonance, it's all about the resonance. And that's why this whole system that the new nobility use, which of course we try to use in the group and we try to use, in personally, like in our Zoom sessions, all the things that we do, we apply the same process of really hearing and listening to each other. And we get to that resonance and we're looking at it from multiple windows, not just one. And to get into the habit of looking at anything from multiple perspectives is really, really profound and actually quite literally enlightening, right? Because it goes to the word elucidation. To elucidate is to bring something to light. Now, if this thing is in dark, right, my coffee mug, let's assume it's in dark and I want to shed light on it. If I shine light on it, I'm only going to see one side of this thing. In order to fully understand the fullness of that, I have to shift that light and shine it from all different angles and perspectives. That's what elucidation is. It is looking at bringing something to light. And in order to bring something to light, you need to have light from multiple angles and multiple perspectives. Because otherwise, you'll only see some things partially. So to be enlightening is, or when you are enlightened, is to have light from all directions and to see the fullness of everything, not just one angle. So this point of perspective shifting, it is massive. And this is part of this takeaway system. You share something and I come back at it and say, let me see if I understood you correctly. Inevitably, I'm not just repeating back exactly what you're saying, but I'm sharing how I understood it in my terms, in my words. And of course, in that, it comes at a different perspective. And then we can say, hey, let's take that a little bit further. Let's look at it from this angle and this angle. And everybody joins in. And of course, we come at from all those different angles, but all roads lead to the same point in the end. It's quite amazing when you're dealing with the abstract. It's very, 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 very exciting. So this whole point of this bigger takeaway is very powerful. Go ahead, Beena.
I have a question. In the beginning, you shared with me that you said that when you are in doubt, zoom out, and also that when someone asks you a question, even if someone else asks you a question, just repeat that question.
Yes.
In like verbally and out loud. Just,
or even in writing. Yeah,
and speak out loud that question. Repeat that question and take a power pause.
Yes.
And it starts a mechanism, a very profound mechanism in our mind, which gives us a different perspective. Before it was not in our mind, it was not in our awareness, but somehow it brings out. So for me, when we share takeaways, and then we say that, okay, I am kind of feel responsible to share, to say that what is my takeaway, it actually start a mechanism in our mind and it start giving us different perspective. And we start elucidating or articulating that, which might not be the case just before the takeaway. Yes, whole session, sometimes it happens to me, whole session is just going and I'm just receiving all these things, but not actually feeling that I have that really clear understanding of that particular session. But when I start saying my takeaway, and you ask me or someone else asks me, what is your takeaway? It actually starts something in my mind. So for takeaways, I feel that sharing and saying this out loud is something really profound, or writing it down, even if in written form.
Yes.
Not necessary that someone else need to ask you something, just yourself. You can, like, I can ask for myself, okay, what is your takeaway, Beena?
Right.
And this is what I do sometimes.
Yeah.
because
Oh, it's very
because
powerful. Yes, I
you
love it.
share that power of questioning, the
Yes.
power of
Yes.
questioning.
Right. Not only does it give a power pause, but let's say, ask me any question related to this. Just ask a question real quick. I just want to demonstrate something.
Okay, what about applied appropriateness and application?
Okay. So what about applied appropriateness,
Yes,
and application? So
yes.
now I'm repeating it, and as I'm repeating it, I'm thinking about what you're saying, and yes, it gives me that power pause. But also, there's another magic that happens. So, what about appropriateness? I'm tuning in I said nearly said Biela, to Beena's cadence and rhythm. So when I repeat your process, it's using your words that I'm repeating. Because I'm now repeating your words and I'm thinking of you as I'm saying this, I am tuning into your intent, not just your words. I'm
Hmm.
tuning into your rhythm, your mood. For instance, if you'd said, what about appropriateness? And I would have repeated back. I said, what about, I wouldn't be able to repeat it that way. But you see my point? There's a mood to it
Yes.
too. Now I get to feel how the question is asked. Now, in this case, it's a question that doesn't have a lot of mood to it. And layeredness, it's a very simple thing. You were just asking it and there wasn't a true, real, deep intent. It didn't come from an earnest space. So it doesn't quite trigger me in the same way. But in other words, when we repeat it back, it's not just what you mean and the words themselves, but the feelings and the intent that goes with it. So we get to connect to more than just the words, because we tend to think in communication it's just all about the words. No, it isn't. It's about intent and feeling as well. Very, very important. Yes.
Yes, it is. And that's why I feel that it is not like, okay, to follow some protocol, okay, attend Zoom session
Exactly.
and live Facebook reading and all that. But
Wow.
yes, I cannot explain it really well, because it is all about experiencing these things. Then once I experience that, now I can understand the difference and the feeling, that how it actually applies and how it actually amplifies my awareness or of that or understanding of particular topic.
Yes.
So
Yes.
for
Yes.
me, my takeaway is to ask question, deliberate question, earnest questions,
Yes.
and
Yes.
make the obvious obvious.
Yes, yes. It's important to check that obvious, because yes, we think it's obvious. We may believe it's obvious, but it wasn't obvious to us until it became obvious. And we have to realize that just because it is obvious now doesn't mean it's obvious to anyone and everyone. And also to check our obviousness, right? Because we may look in through the windows and we're looking through the windows and, well, it's pretty obvious we're seeing. But we even looked through all the windows. We've been really lucky, and we think we know the inside of the house, but we forgot about the basement. Why? Because we couldn't see. The trapdoor was hidden by a carpet. So there's this whole big space. So there's always sometimes more that's not obvious. So it's always good to check, right? Just in case they're hidden basements. I think Beena's connection dropped off. It happens.
No, I'm here.
Okay. So I'm just saying, it's very good to check the obvious and to test it.
Yes.
And not only for just because there might be hidden stuff going on or stuff that's unobvious that's not connected to, but simply for the practice of communication and practicing expressing ourselves. Because
Yes.
sometimes the obvious inside our mind is pretty simple, but to actually express it, this becomes complicated. And so the more practice we get in actually explaining or expressing or sharing the obvious, this is a really profound thing to do. It's really magical. And of course, when you're dealing with abstract topics of deep importance, of learning and growth and insight and awareness, nothing is ever wasted. It doesn't matter that it's obvious. It's always good to be reminded of the necessity for awareness, for being deliberate, for being impeccable, for being aware. We can never get enough of those because they always add to us, right, in every way. So yeah, making the obvious obvious and asking specific questions is very powerful. You said something very important, Beena. You said to ask a question earnestly. That
Yes.
earnestness is an incredible power. Now, for me, I always observed when children asked an earnest question, almost always that question would be answered. You go to your mother and you say, "Ma, what's this?" And you ask, and they say, "Bugger off, I'm busy." They don't, you ask lots of stupid nonsense questions, like kids do, right?
Yes.
When they're young.
Yes.
But when that question comes and there's a different mood and an energy, and they say, "Ma, I really want to know this." They might not say, "I really want to know this," but when they have an earnest question, it's something that's important to them. It matters to them. It's something they really, really want to know, not just want to know, but have to know. And when you're confronted with an earnest question like that, you kind of stop everything. No matter how busy you are, you stop and you answer that question. So earnest questions not only stop and kind of almost force an answer, but they have a powerful effect on others. When I'm asked an earnest question, or just when people respond or even make an earnest comment, like Courtney's comment, she said something very earnestly, it now triggers and it pulls stuff out of me which wasn't there a moment before. So earnestness is like this magic lever for connecting to the more. It is incredibly powerful, earnestness. It is truly something special and magical. So asking those questions earnestly makes all the difference, because that earnestness is an intent, and it's intent that says, this is important to me. I really, really want to know. And it puts you in a space where you're not just asking a question, like people ask lots of questions all the time, even of themselves. Now, why did I do that? And they never answer the question, but shifted to saying, why did I do that? Like really ask it earnestly. Now said, oh my goodness. Well, and then you get all sorts of answers, which otherwise, if you just say, why did I do that? And like people, and they ask a rhetorical self-question. When you actually answer those questions to yourself, even, it's profound. Or you ask the same thing to somebody else. They say, you know what? I don't know why I did that. I know why I did that. And then they just carry on. But when you stop them and say, why did you do that? I really want to know. You ask it earnestly. It's like, oh, and then it all comes out. It's very magical. So earnestness is a powerful lever.
Yes, earnestness is a powerful leverage, and asking question in itself is a power. Because
Yes.
when I ask a question, even just a very obvious, like a stupid question, idiot question, whatever, and it doesn't matter. But
Yes.
for me, if it is important, I'm asking this question,
Yes.
which might be really obvious for other people. Like,
Yes.
oh, it is really obvious, Beena. It is very clear. But for me, it is not. So I'm asking that question. And when I can ask a question, it actually triggers something really magical in my mind, that I have a power, I have a freedom. To ask a question is something to get rid of hesitation, reluctance,
Yes.
distractions, and
Yes.
all these old patterns of following hierarchy and all these things also.
Yes.
Because now I feel empowered when I can ask question. It means that I myself is actually on equal status of a
Yes.
person from
Yes.
whom I'm receiving all these
Yes.
knowledge or wisdom
Yes.
or whatever.
Yes.
So
Yes.
asking question is a power, is a
Yes.
freedom.
And as you go along with that, you get to realize that the entire idea of status becomes completely relevant, and it's a non-entity. It's a false paradigm. It's a square circle. It's just a whole lot of rubbish. So the more we ask questions, and you see that when you ask questions from, let's say, somebody that you started off and you believe that, the teacher, whatever, and you say, I can't ask questions, like, I'm just down here and they're up there. No, when you do ask the questions and you see the magic effect it has on the other and how they benefit from the question, after a while, you realize that questions are gifts, not just for yourself, but for the one you're asking it to as well. So that
Absolutely.
entire idea of hierarchy goes away. And now the questions become the gateway to more. Yeah.
Yes.
And this is just
Yes.
magical, isn't it? It's
Yes, it is.
absolutely unbelievably magical. And then
It
this
is
whole
beneficial
idea
for more.
of hierarchy of appropriateness.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Can I not? And I don't know if you remember, but some in our group, that we regularly discuss in,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, they would say, can I ask a question? And a couple of times I
Right.
just said, like casually, like I was fooling around, but I said no. And I just carried on. And they're like, and like, but why are you asking it? Of course you can ask a question. You don't have to say, can I ask a question? Of course you can ask a question. Not only can you, but we want you to ask questions. We would love it when you ask questions. Questions are important. They're powerful. They're necessary. They're magical. They are profound levers. So an important part about asking questions about what's perhaps obvious to others, but not to you, right? Is
Yeah.
because, all right, so we over here, right, on that square right up there. And,
Yes.
and we're in a discussion and sorry, Beena, I have to, yeah, so just hold on saying something, because when you do it takes the picture away, you see. So I want to use this illustration. All right. So we started here and I'm over there and we're talking about a point over there. But as your life happened, you went this way and you went that way and you went that way and you went that way. And now you're hearing this point and you're saying, but the discussion started there, but they're talking about this point over here. But you haven't actually followed that point in this obvious direct path to this greater point that we're talking about, right? So you want to know about this because it's kind of a hole for you. Yes, you understand the bigger point, but there's this missing step, which for whatever reason in your life, when that step came up, you happened to make the detour and you didn't do that. So there are these holes within us. That are obvious to others, but not to us, because we happen to go a different path to get to the end point, to where we are at now, right? So just because we don't follow the exact same path as everybody else, this is why some things which are obvious to others are not obvious to us. And it's very simple. My famous example is when you make the heart. You type less than 3, right? So when I first saw that, it didn't make the heart. It was just that the emoticon was just less than 3, and people typed it meaning a heart. But it never actually went to a heart. It was before they automatically translated it into the graphic of the heart, right? So in that context, I always thought it meant asset or asset, because asset was like the insult at the time. And if you were being a knucklehead and it was in an open forum and there were lots of knuckleheads involved and there were lots of assets, so people would respond to them and then they'd put less than 3. And, I just thought they were being a little bit sarcastic, but I didn't know this because I'd never seen it become a heart in the translation in that particular forum, in that chat. It was only the typed version. So I would just literally see the less than 3 every time, which to me looked like an asset. I don't know, a little ass with a hat on it, right? so I'm just saying, sometimes we can miss what's really obvious to everyone else and not to us. And the same with LOL. Lots of people don't know it stands for laughing out loud. They think it stands for lots of love, which, in the beginning when it started, it was kind of, in between the two, and then laughing out loud kind of got predominance, if I understand it correctly. And some people got into trouble, like, they sent a note to a funeral and they said, sorry to hear about, so-and-so dying. And then they put lol at the end. We can miss obvious things very easily. It happens a lot. So so it's good to check. It's good to check, and not to assume. And that's part of the magic of perspective shift.
Also for me, asking question it was something like, I can say that it was natural to me, that asking question, it is something I born with. And
yes.
But now I feel that it is also a mechanism, a leverage to not get trapped into our ego.
Exactly. And not to get trapped in that devil assumption.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
sometimes we actually deliberately want to ask a question about what we do believe is obvious to us and what we do understand. And sometimes we just want to ask for the pure purpose of checking. Because when we check it and we self-prove to ourselves, and then we may even say, you know what, I'm going to answer my own questions. And then you explain what is to you obvious. Now you get to self-prove that you do actually understand it, that you do actually know it. So that becomes a profound self-leveraging mechanism, which is really, really potent, a very sophisticated application. But nonetheless, there's more. There's more. So very exciting.
Of course, there
Very,
is more.
very, very exciting. The entire takeaway thing is
So
so
all
profound.
about takeaway.
Yes.
Oh, yes, it's all about.
I'm just elaborating, going because this point is coming up in the conversation between Cornelius and Biela, and you know,
Yes.
it's kind of just a little side point. It's not where they're going, because they're heading towards doing a takeaway of the comment, the last comment that Ursula said before they kind of, you know, the discussion went its own ways, you know, so they kind of left on a very powerful point. And that Ursula said this, and so they're going to do a takeaway of what she said that's coming. But I wanted to just fill in on the concept of takeaway itself, because this is how the story is. You know, it's a very layered story, and even though this is something that they kind of chatting about seemingly fairly casual, yes, Cornelia sees the importance of it, and Biela says it's important, but to flesh it out and to lay it all out, the fullness of it, it's very, very powerful. You know, plus the takeaways are, like I said earlier, they are mechanisms for us to practice our expression and to check with ourselves that we actually are able to express what we know. This is very important.
Oh,
and
yes.
also
Yes.
to hear ourselves what we know, because so often, how often hasn't this happened? We've got all this idea, and yes, I know it, and it's all inside our head, but they shadow thoughts. Then the moment we express it, oh, what was I thinking? Now that I say it, it just sounds ridiculous. It not just sounds, but it is. It's self-contradictory, and it makes no sense, right? That happens sometimes when we express something that in our heads seem to make sense, because sometimes the logic inside our heads can be inside a bubble. And then when you put it out, it's in the bigger light, and then it falls apart because it's not within the narrow confines of the bubble where it made sense, right? Or the shadow thoughts that just kind of run around, and you assume it makes sense, and you take things for granted. But when you express it, it comes out a little bit slower and more deliberate. So part of the takeaway is also to say that to make that effort to check yourself, and to be sure that, hey, not only do I actually understand this, but I'm able to utilize my understanding and express it clearly to myself, that I understand it. And that way we kind of solidify it and clarify it and lock it in. It's a very big deal. It's very simple. And then also there was one other thing with the takeaways, which is to, and now we were just talking about the takeaways in terms of repeating back and asking questions and checking our understanding. But the other part of the takeaway, and where the name comes from, it is, I'm listening to what Beena has been saying, and I say to myself, what do I take away with me from this? What do I take away from our conversation that I can utilize? What do I take away that I'm going to put inside me, I'm going to build inside me, that I'm going to add to myself? So in this particular conversation, my takeaway is about the magic power of questions, right? Not just that they are there for information purposes, but they serve and utilize as leveraging mechanisms. And more profoundly, what you were saying, right, Beena? You were saying my takeaway is, for me, I'm saying, when Beena made this point about questions, she said, and the takeaway is that questions are a mechanism for communion, for connectivity, right? But communion specifically, where we are communing, we are getting together. Because when we really ask earnest questions, we are now making a very profound and even an intimate connectivity with another. An intimate connectivity where any hierarchy, equality nonsense, all of those misbeliefs, they fall away. Because a question is not something that's one way. And this is a profound takeaway perspective shift. A question is a two-way magical gift. It benefits both, right?
Yes.
It is a
Yes.
gift both ways. Right. So a question is a gift both ways, regardless of the answer. The question itself is a profound magical gift. So this is a huge deal. And, you know, that freedom that comes from asking questions, profound, earnest questions. They don't have to be profound, just earnest questions. When they're asked earnestly, any earnest question is always profound as far as I'm concerned, because there's a profoundness that happens because of earnestness. Doesn't matter how maybe the question, how obvious or nonsensical it may be, it makes no difference. The fact that it is an earnest question to you means that, well, you may ask something that's really obvious to everyone else, like, what does less than 3 mean when I type it? Now I'm getting into how I'm getting that misperception. Okay, it may be a simple answer, and I'm like, oh, but the fact that it was a hole in my understanding, this is a profoundness. It leads me to see, wow, if I could not know that about something so simple and obvious, what else am I potentially missing? You see, so when we really connect with earnestness, there's always more. I know you see that. I'm sorry, that was a rhetorical question, but but you responded anyway, which is magical. So it's really powerful, this, when it gets us to shift perspective and look deeply. But yeah, and the connectivity, and that is, you know, asking questions earnestly. It is a very profound way of connecting to others. So that's why I said communion, you know, it brings us closer to others when we truly ask earnest questions. It automatically makes for that connectivity and a closeness. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's very magical.
It is,
Very,
it
very,
is
very
magical.
magical. I
Thank you
absolutely love it.
so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh,
Thank you so
absolute
much
pleasure. And
for
on
this
that,
sharing.
Beena, I think that's a good point to end, because it's a nice takeaway of what we were talking about,
Oh,
and
yes.
it's a good part in the story to stop as well. So
Okay.
we'll end it right there. Very magical. Yes, thank you, Beena. Thank you for being in here. I love it. I love it. So also on just a quick note from what you sent me earlier, just send it in an email if you want for the editing, and then we can do it there. So, okay, if you want. Other than that, you know, go ahead.
Of course, I want to. That's why I shared with you before posting.
Right.
I haven't posted yet.
All right. Okay. So just send in an email, and if you do it right now, I'll take care of it right now. It'll take me literally.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Or in the morning. Okay.
No. No. Now I'm sending you.
All right. Brilliant. Let me just end the live stream and refresh here. So we're still on Zoom, but you know, I just ended the Facebook Live right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. But we're still on Zoom, you know, and the Zoom still records. So, but it's just the Facebook Live has ended. So. All right. So just refresh everything. Okay. Brilliant. So let me look at my email.
I'm just sending you.
Oh, you haven't sent yet?
I'm just sending you.
Okay. You sending to Sil or to the other email, the Sil and Olivia one? Which one?
Better tell me.
The Gmail? I don't know. Whichever one comes up easier for you. Either one is fine.
Okay.
I'm not seeing it just yet. That's why I'm asking.
It is taking a bit longer.
Okay. I got an email. Somebody's been asking about us doing a custom workshop for them.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Which San Sebastian, I guess.
Right. Okay. Reply.
Oh, let me do that. I don't know why my network is just taking time to upload anything. It is now loading. Okay.
It's okay.
Why it is not coming?
I don't know. Just maybe a little bit of delay. delay, just, busy
Oh.
network. So it happens sometimes.
Okay. I'm just actually replying you now from your poem, because it is not actually allowing me. The young man poetry.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm replying it in
Oh,
that.
wow. Magical.
Hey,
Oh,
I guess now you'll have.
okay. Oh, it said send, so it took a little while to send.
Yeah, a message sent for me.
Okay. So let me see. Just took the opportunity to respond to that lady. Here we go. Today is the day, reverence. What is appropriateness? Okay, so let me copy this, and verbal selfie, practicing self-expression. And typically when it's self something, it's hyphenated, just by the way. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, practicing. Okay, now I don't know if you spell American or I spell British, but practicing with the S.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the second C is the S. Okay. Actually, let me screen share, then you can see as I do this. I know it's late, Beena, but it's a good time to do this, and it takes a minute. So, okay. So, what is appropriateness? Question mark inside this capital. This question popped up in my mind today, in a bit of a of a strange situation, comma. Just because there's a bit of a pause there, right? But this
Okay.
was my intent.
Intent with capital I?
For me, always, yes. Yeah. I mean, absolutely, yeah. To be attentive throughout the day. But, comma again. And then, yeah, it's especially for, yeah. It can be specially, but especially and specially are slightly different. It works either way. But just kind of on a technical. Lessons to be learnt, lessons, plural, right? And to be learned, ED, or you can put a T there. I like to say learned in mundane activities. And then the comma is again inside without a space. Okay, let's come to the story. You see, it's
Okay.
possibly
Yes,
because it's
possibly.
right. Let us come to the story. And yeah, I
Again,
think we can, but we can make a full stop here, right?
Yes. Okay.
And then start fresh, because it just gives power instead of being one long sentence, right? Because that was, otherwise it's one very long sentence. Today, comma, weather, here in my city, Karachi, comma, was
No, Kahai.
today,
Okay.
weather here in my city, Karachi, because you're kind of going off your center column. You're going a quick little aside for Karachi, right? That's why it's in commas like that. That's how come you do that, right? So today, weather here in my city, Karachi, was a bit comfortably cold.
Wow.
You see?
Okay.
Right. I was at work and trying to create some interesting captions for social media posts for upcoming events. No space.
It is actually an event.
Okay. Well, then for an upcoming event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sitting in the office thinking, no one to talk with, cozy weather. What comes to mind? Okay, that's wonderful right there. Okay, coffee. Yes. I am also not unique or special in any way, so I asked for tea. There's a bit of a disconnection here in the logic.
Okay. Yes, just you can. I can just put an insert, a sentence here that yes, for Pakistanis, tea is like coffee.
So, okay.
For us here in Pakistan, yes.
Okay. There you go. Very simple.
Yeah.
I asked for a tea or just tea.
Okay, I asked for tea. Okay, yes. I asked for tea.
Right. Okay. In a few seconds,
In a few seconds.
Yeah, in a few seconds.
So I don't have that A.
Yeah. In a few seconds, a hot steaming cup was on my desk.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling blessed. Again, that feeling blessed is a little bit of an aside, right?
Yeah.
I was admiring the perfect color and aroma of my tea. Now, I spell color British way with a U, but that's the American way. So you spell British, you spell like this too with a U, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine. Feeling blessed, I was admiring the perfect color and aroma of my tea. Full stop. No, it was not love at first sight. Comma, again, right? Comma. It was not, but yes, kind of, lol. I was in a hurry to take a sip of that divine elixir. And in this case, we'll put elixir lowercase.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not a power term or something that we specifically, just a cool word. A perfect color, like fresh baked buns, aroma as refreshing as Tommy Girl. And let's take out that space, perfume. It was just a couple of seconds, and that sun-kissed beauty spilled on my left knee. Where was I? Spilled on my left knee. Ouch, my dress, my notepad, my handbag. You're making a list, you see? My handbag. Everything was covered in tea, but my left leg and tea madly in love with each other. And since it's such a long sentence, we can just end it here now and just make a new one, right? Doesn't have to be so long. Being apart was not an option for them, but life has its own rules. Comma. Yikes. Life has its own rule. To put a full stop there makes it very powerful, right?
Okay.
So you end on a strong point, right? Mm-hmm. Yikes. Tea must leave my leg alone, but part of my skin went with tea.
My skin.
Yeah. Part of my skin, yes. Oh, my skin went with tea. Yikes. Now you have yikes as a close repeat, so sometimes it's good to have that, but other times it can be repetitive. Yikes. I hate mad lovers. And there's no reason for mad to be capitalized here, right?
Okay.
Oh, please. Do not assume that I forgot. And then let's make this a new paragraph because it's kind of getting long, the paragraph, and you're starting on sort of a new point, right? Oh, please, comma. Do not assume that I forgot my appropriate question when it all happened and I was sitting after washing my things, trying to be normal with that piercing pain of burn. I was looking at the place where just a few minutes ago my cup of tea was alluring me, right?
Yes.
If I had to change to sip.
Chance to sip.
Oh, if I had a chance to sip, then I might be feeling pleasure, right?
Okay.
Right? That makes more sense to say then, right?
Yes, is unnecessary here.
Calmness. Say again?
Might be a feeling pleasure. No, might be feeling pleasure.
Right. Might be feeling pleasure, calmness, relaxation, and more in my mind, body, and soul. And I think that's a good place to end a full stop. But now, the same cup of tea has given me pain, stress, and loss. my notes. And in this case, we put the full stop over here and then just put the in brackets after that. T was the same. But. Just but, comma.
Yes.
It is all about appropriateness. That's it.
Yes. Oh, you made it sensible.
Oh, it was sensible. I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. So let's just put another paragraph there. And verbal selfie, practicing self-expression. What is appropriateness? And that's it. I love that, Beena. Very simple. Very simple. All right. Brilliant. I look forward to seeing that post and the picture and everything. But, you know, again, no need to post it now. Of course, there's no rush on these things. So.
No, I will post because I might not have time tomorrow.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Daytime. Okay. So that's why I might be.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Brilliant. Brilliant. I love it. I love it. And I enjoyed the Zoom. It was nice reading like that and then breaking for the discussions. That was very cool.
Oh, yes.
I like
it.
And that was the intent.
I was hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it goes off into side things, and you know, when people comment, then it comes more. So yeah, very cool. And I'm pleased that, you know, some joined and enjoyed that. I hadn't seen there before. You know, I know Olivia. She actually says her name as Olivia. She pronounces the I as an E. Yeah, not Olivia as most people say. For her, it's, you know, has connection to Spanish, and in Spanish it's Olivia, where they say it that way. So yeah, she mentioned this in a post once. So Olivia joined, and then Courtney as well, who I haven't seen before, and Jincy didn't comment anything, but nonetheless. So that's pretty cool. Very exciting.
Oh yes.
All right. So we'll chat to you.
Okay. I'm not sure about my morning time because it is getting late, and I might take some medicine. So I'm not sure.
Oh, and that's the thing, is sleep extra. So yeah, so forget about tomorrow morning. Go sleep extra and go straight to work. Very good idea.
Oh yes.
Very good idea, Beena. Very good idea. Very good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. It is good.
Yeah.
It was good for me to take part in that library.
Oh, it was magical.
I was feeling a bit like, okay, Beena, you're lacking, because for 2 days it was like, no, nothing like that. Yes, now I feel more connected. Yes. And I feel on track.
Continuity and momentum, very important.
Yes.
Maintaining our continuity, very powerful. So you are aware of that. And you saw that and the power of it, and that's very special. That's very magical. And yes, that momentum and that continuity, it's very special to me also. It's very profound, because we're keeping to build, and we're keeping that big flywheel, keeping it going. Because when a flywheel, it's a big, heavy thing, right? It takes time to get it up and running. And yes, you can leave it for a little while and it'll keep going. But if you leave it too long, it gets too slow, or even stops, and then it takes a lot of energy to get it going again. So yeah.
Also that I was feeling dependent on others to participate, to get more perspective, and all these things in the beginning, like even just a couple of weeks before, I was in that thought, but somehow, like from 2 weeks, I'm actually not thinking about any other thing, and I'm just assuming that yes, I am doing this, and if in this situation right now, it is enough. It is enough that me and you, we are doing, and we can create a huge impact. Yes.
Either way, it's good. When it's just one-on-one or many, makes no difference. That's the magic of appropriateness. Exactly, that's the magic of appropriateness. Right? Because we just adapt as appropriate. Yeah.
Oh yes.
How magical is that? Okay. Brilliant. Go sleep.
Now
go sleep. Go. Appropriateness of sleeping and dreaming. Dream appropriately with appropriate awareness. How's that?
Okay. Oh yes.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And meeting.